Okay. Just one more moment. Almost. Yay. Okay. So thank you, Chris, so much for joining me today on my channel. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Leigh. This is so much fun.
It is. It is. If I can only get clear, I'm probably going to be going in and out, being fuzzy. So
It's magic. It's magic, that
but
fuzzy.
but I'm still here. So Chris, oh my gosh, Chris. Oh, Chris is like a powerhouse of a woman right here. Like Chris is just amazing. So Chris and I met at an inner child workshop. I think that was May of last year.
It was.
Yeah. So it seems like, I don't know, time is so weird these days. Like, I don't know. I'm like, was that a long time ago or was that just yesterday? I don't really know.
A blink. It was a blink ago.
It was a blink, but man, oh my goodness, that was probably one of the most intense workshops I've ever done.
Awesome. That is the best news I've heard all day. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, in a very good way, you guys. So, you know, Chris just has this like, I mean, you have a gift. You just have this like magical ability. I can't even really like put it into words. What is your like essence and your superpower? Um, but I mean, she can hold such deep space for people, and you know, the level of like safety in the container, and you know, just being able to be yourself completely and be accepted for who you are, and whatever it is that's on your mind or whatever you need to release or let go of, like, is perfectly okay. And actually, it's more than okay, it's encouraged.
It is. Yes. Thank you. And thank you for letting me know that my intentions are being realized, because safety and connection, I believe, are at the foundation of everything we do successfully in life.
Absolutely. Because we can't, I mean, we have to kind of create that safe space and that safe container to actually heal and do work. Because if we're constantly stressed, or if we're in fight or flight, or our nervous system is kind of like out of whack, we can't do any healing. Like, it's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us that that is the very core of anything that we do. And so whether I was in my classroom as a business professor or hosting these retreats, without safety, I have nothing to work off of.
Yeah. Um, and what exactly is safety for you? Like, what does that mean for you?
In my experience, and I can often be overheard saying in my world, because I am under no misconception that my world and everyone else's world are the same, or that we perceive it in any way, shape, or form to be the same. But in my world, my goal for myself and for my children is to be returned to a place where there's no judgment. And I believe that's the purity and innocence that we were birthed in. And so holding that space for me, I hold that space no matter who it's for, no matter what it's for. I hold it from a place of absolutely no judgment whatsoever. And quite often I can be overheard reminding people that they are safe, and reminding people that their emotions, every last one of them, are important to me and to their opening and their healing. So for me, safety is a completely non-judgmental space to express all of my emotions. But I am particularly fond of the shadow emotions. So our anger, shame, fear, and sadness. And quite often we don't have a place a safe place in particular to express those.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of workshops and ceremonies that I've been to previously, that's not really allowed. It's kind of like if you're doing that, you're disturbing everyone else, and they kind of like take you away to this other section and you're separated, which I think is completely insane. Because like we think about everything we've experienced throughout our whole lifetime, all of the input that's coming in, all of the sensory input that's coming in, everything that's happened to us, all of our feelings, all of it, like it includes everything, just the good acceptable things that people are comfortable with, like, you know, happiness and joy and laughter, and yeah, everybody's fine with that. But then when it comes to like being upset, being angry, being frustrated, grieving, being sad, mourning, all of that stuff that people are uncomfortable with because our society hasn't allowed anyone to actually express and feel those things, you know, then it's kind of like shut down. So I know like a lot of parents, and they're doing their best, right? They're doing all they know how to do, but you know, they certainly don't provide that safe space for us to experience those types of feelings and emotions. So we have all these feelings and emotions that have just been getting stuck and like trapped in our body. And I remember you own some great incredible books, and one of the books that I was leafing through was The Body Keeps Score, which I think everyone on the planet should read that.
I agree. That's a good one. We have some juicy books here, and there's magic in that. And I love what you just shared, Leigh, because there's so much truth in it on so many levels. We have a lot of false notions in our spiritual community. You know, so many things that happen, whether it's we pick up a book, we go to another teacher's seminar or workshop or retreat, we watch a YouTube video. You know, I especially love the encouragement to live in the now. And so we all go pick up a book, or we go, you know, to a retreat or something, because who doesn't want to live in the now, right? Who doesn't want to live fully present instead of from their trauma? And we go through it and we're really fired up when all is said and done. Oh my God, Leigh, that was the best book I ever read. I am so going to live in the now. And then within a week or two, you're back to living from your trauma, and it creates more shame, which is what started this to begin with. And then it creates more anger, it creates more sadness, and it creates more fear. And ultimately, it's creating the not enough and the self-hatred. And it's just not helping us to be free, which is what I believe that we can be. So there's a lot in the self-love community, self-care, self-love, and many of these things, not all, but many of these things are about embracing your new mindset. Shift your mind, shift your life, all of those types of things. And yet my anger, my shame, my fear, and my sadness are a big piece of who I am. And if I really want to love me, I deserve to know all of the pieces of who I am and make love to them. And I call it slow, sweet love, because I'm in no hurry to get to know all the pieces and parts of me. But it's not often encouraged, and it's a huge struggle. And it did, like you said, and I'm 100% with you. Parents, humans, love in the best and only way they know how. And I would say that the majority of humans do not have children to fuck them up for life.
Right.
The majority have good intentions when they have children. But most of us on the planet at some point in our lives, and usually as early as our terrible twos, you know, we start to act out with a voice that's new to us. We start to want to be heard, as well as the fact that we've been seen. And we want to be loved and kept safe with what ever comes up for us. But there are books written about how to control your child in that phase of life. And more often than not, and I will often say, show of hands, if you ever heard this, when we're in that phase, most of us are told, stop crying right now. I'm going to give you a reason to cry. And what that child learns in that moment is, stop having feelings. You're making me uncomfortable. Your job is to make and keep me comfortable. And that people-pleasing little person is birthed in that moment. Our emotions are pushed down unless they make other people feel good. And there's so much that is formed about who we will become as adults in that brief moment. So thank you for sharing that. What I offer is different. And what we hope to do here is to provide that safe space to explore all of you.
Yeah, so beautiful. And I personally think, and especially as someone who's, I mean, I've always been fascinated in psychology and behavior, but I mean, trauma, I believe trauma is within all of us to some extent, to varying degree, whether, some people have had trauma in this lifetime, and sometimes it's past lifetimes, sometimes it's both, sometimes it's all the ancestral stuff. Like, so because now that we're learning about epigenetics and how memories can be passed down from generation to generation, there's really, unfortunately, there's little way to avoid it if you consider the many, many years that people have been living and experiencing things like wars and plagues and, just devastating things happening. So it's there. And it's, it's a scary thing to meet it. It's, uncomfortable at the minimum and sometimes terrifying. But I feel like if we don't meet it, then it's going to just constantly be haunting us and, just running like underneath the subconscious, and affecting everything we do. So, I mean, that's just my personal opinion though. That's my personal truth. And I know, like, everyone's got their own.
Well, and I love that. And I am on the same page with you. And you said something really profound, and that was that it can be really daunting and scary to meet that trauma. But I feel like it can be really daunting and scary to meet that trauma without tools to address it. And I hope that that's what I bring to the table. When people come to a retreat here, I always tell them, first and foremost, there's nothing that I've done that every human being on this planet can't also do. And I myself was a victim of a childhood sexual pornography ring when I was 3 and sex trafficked. And some people don't survive that. I spent many years saying, why me? I would find homeless people and crack houses and rehab centers and prisons and morgues full of people that had the same story that I had at the age of 3. But I decided to find the tools to fill up my toolbox and to meet those pieces and parts of me that were running my life with self-sabotage, with abusing others and allowing abuse, and all these different pieces and parts that didn't feel good in my life. I later found out were these traumatized pieces of me begging for my love and attention. And it was everything from physical illnesses to mental health challenges and my relationships, and then being an emotionally abusive mother for many years, and on occasion a physically abusive mother. I lived in daily suicidal ideations, and I was to the point where I was either going to kill myself or I was going to get to work on my shit and stop putting my trauma onto other people. And so I filled my toolbox, and now whatever comes my way, and there's a lot going on the planet right now, triggering shit where we can just, decide we don't want to get out of bed every morning, and people will go, I don't blame you, stay over there, but I'm grateful that my toolbox is full and that I can address what comes my way. It was a mouthful.
Like, breathe that in for a second. Ooh. Sometimes Chris just like she just like slams us with some cold hard truth sometimes.
Sicilian Scorpio right here. It was way worse when I was 20, Leigh. So you're getting the 52-year-old version. This is called watered down.
Okay. Oh my gosh. No, I love it. I love it though. And I love your vulnerability and your honesty, and how, you seem to be very comfortable now, kind of like telling your story. And how, like, did that take?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, did that take a long time?
Well, I'm 52 and I started this work at 42. And at that stage in my life, I had no memories before the age of 10 at all, none. Wow. And and I took psychology classes in graduate school for fun. My graduate degree is in developing humans, but more on a business level. I was a business professor for many years. And it was only in doing my own personal work that I realized that my business background and my personal work could come together to create our best lives, not just our best business. And in my experience, as we shift from the time of competition and all these things that were acceptable to our parents and our grandparents into this age of collaboration, into this age of transparency and a heart-centered world, that our stories, our storytellers will be our best storytellers, will be our best leaders. And our stories, every one of us, they're important. And I believe we go through what we go through to help others go through what we've been through. Otherwise, what's the point?
Exactly. And that was one of the big motivations behind making this channel, is because I want people to come on and share their story. It's so important. There's so many people who, I feel very grateful and fortunate enough that I've made the connections that I have, and I've met people like you, and I have this like vast like network of community, but there's a lot of people out there that don't, for whatever reason. And to think about what that must be like, to be totally alone in, maybe you're coming into this newfound awareness, you're starting to do some introspection, your consciousness is changing, you are awakening, and or maybe just like working on your trauma. And so it's good to know that there's other people out there that have similar stories to you, and you're not alone. Nobody's alone. There's always people out there that are going through like almost the same exact thing that you are. I promise. Like, the few times that I have gotten like super real and vulnerable and just posted like, I'm going through some shit right now, and this is what it is, everyone's like, oh my gosh, me too. And also like you, like a lot of the stuff you post. Okay, so you posted something a couple days ago, and it says, the moment that you start to wonder if you deserve better, you do.
Woo, that's so juicy. Who posted that? Oh, wait.
You.
It's so good.
You did.
So good. Because for me, that is the shift into awareness. I think that's even before awakening, the awareness. And I spent 14 years in an emotionally abusive marriage. And for the majority of those 14 years, I wasn't enough. I could have done better. I could have done differently. I shoulda, coulda, woulda. If only I was grateful. If only I wasn't a bitch. The list was long, Leigh, of how I caused this abuse don't get me wrong, it takes two to tango, and I was not the best wife, but there were things that I accepted in my marriage that I don't even tell people, I don't even share today. I will, I mean, I'll share with anybody now, but things that were really, really humiliating that I put up with. And I left so many times, it's embarrassing. And I went back and went back and went back and went back. And I wondered, Leigh, if I deserved better. And I would convince myself I did not. Until one day, these subtle emotional abuses turned into verbal abuse. He called me a fucking bitch. I left and never looked back. I needed a clear-cut piece of evidence that I did deserve better and that I was being abused.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And you know what I found is really interesting in my own experience is it seems to be what's happening is, you know, because I lived a childhood also where, you know, I think we don't think we deserve better because that's what we were accustomed to. So when we were children and growing up, you know, we were accustomed to maybe just having like basic needs met, if that, and, you know, not feeling like we deserve more because we didn't get it. Right. So we enter our adult lives, you know, kind of perpetuating like this pattern of not feeling like we're worthy, shame, and not feeling like we deserve what we truly do. And what I've been finding is there's like levels to this. It's it's so tricky. It's like there's levels. So I've definitely worked through some stuff already where as far as like some relationships, people in my life that I've, you know, let fall away or I've cut them off, and, you know, I've decided, okay, I deserve better. I love myself enough. You know, it's not about that I think I'm better than them or anything like that, because there's no right or wrong. It's just different. But I love myself enough to know like what I want and what I deserve. And I'm finding that I'm still actually right now experiencing things that make me question, do I deserve this? And the answer is no. And I'm noticing that I'm actually still in that pattern somewhat. And it's not as it might not be like as blatantly obvious as the other things. It's kind of hard to explain, but, you know, just little things here and there. And yeah, it's just crazy. I'm just realizing this now that I'm still in it. I'm still in the pattern. And I saw you post that. I was like, oh my gosh. Like
well, and I love this
at the same time that I'm thinking out.
Well, and it's so juicy that you're sharing all this because I had a client earlier today, and, you know, don't we all just love to beat ourselves up? And, you know, I'm very much of the school of thought that if I still want to do something, whatever it is, bad relationship, drinking, whatever vice I want to use to hurt myself, if I still want to do it, I should go out there and do it until I don't want to do it anymore. So my client was beating herself up, and I was saying, look, don't beat yourself up. You're just not done with the class yet. This lesson's not over. You know, do you, boo, like you're kicking ass. And then I shared with her my awareness. So I left my husband in 2010 and stayed for 14. Well, my divorce was final in 2015, long story, but anyway, I was married for 14 years. And I said, you know, I've done a lot of things that where I deserve better in the last however many 11 years since I started dating again. But the bottom line is my worthiness is, you know, 14 years is never going to happen again. Like, I think my record now is 5 months of shit I didn't deserve. And it's getting shorter. You know, my span is getting shorter. And for me, I'm all about experiential learning. I love experiential learning. So like many people, there was a no dating zone for COVID. And that for me lasted about 2 years. So I started dating again this past summer, like July or August. And let me tell you, Leigh, it has been so cool to be able to date in this new version of me. Cause I did so much work in those 2 years that I had no idea who I was and who was going to be dating. And this new version of Chris and the way that she dates, I like it. I like it. There is not one red flag that goes unnoticed. There is not one excuse that I make for another human being or for myself. And tapping into my greatest mentor and my best friend Spirit, every time I had a question about dating, instead of going to one of my friends who's also in it themselves, has been amazing. I mean, I met this I've been dating a lot and it's been really fun. So a couple dates here and there. I went out with this, what I thought was a lovely man, 3 dates. I mean, I never get excited about a first date. Second date, I'm kind of down. We're at 3 dates. I like you, let's figure out where this can go. And after the third date, I never heard from him again. And I was like, what did I miss? What the hell just happened here? And when I checked in with Spirit, like a couple weeks later saying, hey, I just want to reach out to him. And Spirit said, well, why do you want to do that? And I said, because I want to see what he's really about. And Spirit said, you've already seen it. He's already shown you who he is. Would you like to believe it? And I was like, damn, that would be a first. I would like to believe it this time around. And so every date that I went on after that, and I checked in with Spirit and said, what am I missing? Should I reach out? Should I go out with him again? Whatever the case is, Spirit said, he's already shown you who he is. Would you like to believe it? And this is the first time in my life, Leigh, that I've ever believed it before I put myself into a really painful, uncomfortable learning situation, because I'm now down to learn gently, gracefully, and peacefully with a lot of love.
Amen. Amen.
It's what we deserve.
I'm still working on that. And yes, you're right. It's what we deserve. And I'm still working on it. And I've noticed with this past situation, like what's happening right now, I was ignoring it. I wasn't okay. So the red flags come up and I was totally ignoring it. I was like, oh, it'll just be fine. I'll be fine. When I should have acted like weeks ago and I didn't.
Well, so have you ever had a relationship? Go ahead. Where you played it out?
Well, no, I was just going to say that it puts you in a situation where like if you wait too long, it's like, you're just like, you can't take it anymore. Yeah. Or you,
well,
and
sorry. I saw, I've had extended relationships where, I joke, and this is not funny. I don't joke about it anymore. I shouldn't have had a second date with my husband, nonetheless married him. And then my subsequent relationships, since I left my marriage, so many of them I knew up front, but what I didn't know was how to acknowledge the red flag and lovingly step away. So I was on the phone with this man earlier this summer, and I was really fired up about the connection. We spoke on the phone the first night for like 2 hours, and we're supposed to meet the next day. And he was like, I'm going to leave work and I'm going to head your direction. I was like, cool, I'll get my kids to their dads. Wow. So he calls me the next day when he's leaving the office, and he's like, okay, I'm out of work. And I said, cool, are you heading this direction? It turned into like a weird, I don't even know where that direction is. And this whole thing. And it was a screaming red flag to me. But Chris from 2 years ago wouldn't have known how to say, this is not for me. But I said, hey, it was really lovely talking to you. I don't think we're a match. Best of luck to you. And I hung up. And then it was just recently, this was like months ago, but it was just recently, like a couple weeks ago, I was cleaning out my phone and I have this blocked messages area. And I went in and I looked and I played the message, and it was a person who was slurring and drunk and telling me off. And I was like, who is this person? And how did I magically dodge whatever bullet this was, And I was like, finally, I feel like I am healthy enough to date, because I know how to step away and say, thank you so much. This isn't a match.
Yeah. And sometimes too, it can be really subtle. Like sometimes the red flags are really blatantly obvious, but sometimes they're subtle, right? And it's more of just like a frequency, like an energetic frequency, and you can just feel it, you know? But I think like there's part of me that is so like optimistic and hopeful and like wants it to be good and wants it to be fine. And I just want to like get along with everybody. But I'm coming to also accept that I'm very different than most people, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a smaller subsection of people that I actually really vibe with, that really get me, that are on kind of that similar wavelength, that similar level of consciousness and or higher, or people who have been doing work on themselves and all this stuff. And even though that the population is growing, people that are becoming more aware and doing the work, definitely, but it's still relatively small.
And I love that you found those people to date, because for me, I was like, I want to find somebody to go to comedy club with. I want to go to Top Golf. I want to go to, an 80s arcade. Let's go to, this Christmas lights display, because I feel like for me, dating is fun. And if I were to find a conscious person, that would be amazing. But in the meantime, an activities partner is really an enjoyable thing for me. But then, like you're saying, it was super interesting to try and go out in the real world. I get excited. I go to the comedy club, and one of the comedians that night had recently been in prison and did an entire 10-minute long joke on prison rape. And the whole room is falling out. And I'm just sitting there knowing fully that this is at least a part of the world I don't fit in, and I will never fit in. And I was grateful that the person I was with, he sort of knew me. And so he reached across the table and just touched my hand and looked me in my eyes and said, how you doing over there? And I was able to share with him later, I don't fit in this part of the world. And so while I don't necessarily expect to find someone who shares my level of consciousness, being non-judgmental and open to who I am as a person is important to me. And if we can just be non-judgmental and open to one another as people, I think we can find some common ground there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, dating's a whole nother a whole nother thing. Oh my gosh. I have not been dating in, oh my gosh, my last relationship ended, I want to say that was wait a minute. I'm trying to figure out when that was. Yeah, that was 3 years ago, something like that.
Me too. Like 2 years ago, last time. But dating, experiential learning. I'm a good Scorpio. I like to learn in partnership.
Okay. I haven't really put myself out there as far as dating. I've been I've been a little bit hesitant about that. But yeah, good for you though. Good for you.
It's interesting, Leigh, because I wanted to witness myself in that mirror of another person. And when I went out there, it was like I felt these judgments come to the surface, and I was able to witness them and address them later in solitude. And I've never had so much fun dating in my life. It's just been really fun to see more of me that I wouldn't have been able to find on my own, and to be able to witness this from a place of purity and innocence. I've gotten wrapped up in relationships years ago in my life where, you just blink and you're like, how did we end up in a relationship? Not only did I miss red flags, but now we're all snuggled up in bed together. And what did I miss from point A to point B?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be able to, first of all, hold myself in the highest order. I had a person, like on our first date, invite me home with him. And that was lovely. And I found him to be a lovely person. But on a first date, I will, I know that I want to hold your hand and I might want to, quick kiss before you leave, but I surely don't know that I want to end up in bed with you. I don't even know who you are. And most people can't grasp that. And they can't see it for the act of fear and unworthiness that it actually is. So many people will say, I don't know, I had this partner and they were amazing and then they went crazy. No, they were crazy already. You just didn't find out until way later because you were clouded by physical attraction and sex.
You guys were both crazy, actually.
Right. I don't believe in crazy, by the way. Yeah. That was not a nice thing to say, but things come up and we don't know how they came up or how we missed them. But I used to say that, kiss me and I get stupid and I don't see things.
Yeah. That's why, I've been thinking a lot about if, when I do get back into, I don't even know if I want to call it dating, but I guess I would call it, for myself, it would be more like friendships, like developing friendships. Because I believe like what's right for me, what feels good for me is developing a long-term friendship with someone first. I'm talking about 6 months to a year of a friendship, like nothing like physically intimate, nothing like that. Because I want to know that person, that we're like best friends, basically. Like that's what I want. I want best friends plus. So, if you like, I want the whole package and I'm not willing to settle for less than that. I'd rather just be single. So
I'm with you. I'm with you. And and the activity partners and the common loves has been fun for me, but I get it. I get it completely. How can we get to know each other first?
Right, exactly. And also it weeds out people too that, are, interested in other things, or maybe like, I think that like jumping into relationships really quickly is a form of codependency, and looking for someone to complete you because you don't already feel complete, and looking for love outside of yourself and this whole thing. So for me, it's really about someone who, you have these two people that both stand in self-love, they don't need anything outside of themselves. They're already complete. They're two whole complete people, and then they come together and then they almost create like this third magical energy together that's like insane. I've heard people talk about this.
So well, and that is my belief system. When we stand in our power and our sovereignty and our health, you have two people standing in that, and then they create this energetic existence that together, but it is still this other piece. And I'm totally with you in that, the codependency and, so much of playing out our trauma bonds and our karmic wounds and all these things that we think are love at first sight, and we think are twin flames and all these things that ultimately end up abusive. And then we make excuses for them because we've created a fantasy bond with our parents. We then create a fantasy bond with our partners.
Sorry, anytime somebody mentions twin flame, I get slightly nauseous.
You should. Like, that is one of the biggest spiritual lies I have ever heard in my life. Let's make an excuse to run and chase and abuse one another and call it love. Like what?
Like what?
It's so crazy. So crazy.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No. And I love it because it is an incredible gift. I mean, obviously these people have the most amazing soul contract ever, and they're there to play it out. But for me, anything outside of me that doesn't feel happy, healthy, peaceful, calm, still, is a call to come inside of me, return to myself, and figure out why. I've run, I've chased, and then, I smacked myself around a little bit and said, I'm worthy of a better experience, and there's no excuse to abuse one another in the name of love.
Right, exactly. And, just to share a little bit of insight of what's going on in my own personal life. It's not dating. It's not like a romantic relationship or anything like that. So recently, a couple months ago, I decided to embark on this new lifestyle. So I'm doing Workaways, which is basically, it's like a work trade. You have a host, you usually live with them, you stay with them. And then in exchange for room and board, you work about 20, 25 hours a week. So I had a friend tell me about this a couple years ago, and I thought it sounded super cool and interesting. And they have all different types of positions, and some are paid, and they're all over the world. And you can travel and this and that. So anyway,
I love this idea. Tell me more.
Yeah, it's like a great concept. And at some point, I'm going to make a video on my channel about this and really like breaking it down and giving people pointers, because you don't necessarily know what you're walking into until you get there. There can be a description on the website about what it is. You can talk to them on the phone, you can email them, all this stuff back and forth, but you don't actually know until you get there. Like, there's like certain questions, like, I ask, like, for example, like, I need a good Wi-Fi connection. Well, that might mean different things to different people, obviously.
Yeah, right. Subjective.
And I would never think to ask, does my bedroom have any windows in it?
Okay, that's important. Oh,
It doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah, and you know what? I deserve better than that.
I deserve windows in my bedroom, damn it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the courageous act of traveling alone. When I stopped having codependent relationships, and I decided that I wanted to consciously learn in a gentle, graceful, peaceful way, solo travel for me is wonderful. Spirit is so poignant with the lessons that it places in my path when I travel alone, and the triggers that come my way, and the questions that I learn to ask, that it's beautiful how courageous and really deliberate it is for you to decide to learn in this beautiful way.
Oh yeah, it's been a lot of learning for sure. But I think now it's about time for me to really be solo and just kind of like be by myself for a while. Yeah. I think that's definitely necessary. But,
or at least in a room with windows.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
I love it.
Let me write up my my long list of my needs and requirements, and I'll send that over to you, just so you know.
That have nothing to do with a partner and everything to do with the space.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love it.
But it's just like, it's so interesting how I've been noticing this pattern that is still obviously within me, of like not feeling like I'm valuable and not feeling like I deserve more. And it's so interesting to notice that now.
It's beautiful.
Fascinating
It is
stuff. Fascinating.
Yes.
Get clear.
I'm not sure what it is, but I see it now. It looks like a lovely filter, just so you know.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, anyway, it's been a wild ride, really. Like I honestly feel like, I don't know what 2021 felt like for you, but for me, it was wild. It was intense. It was, yeah, I'm not going to use the word crazy. We're not going to use that word, but it was wild.
It was really intense. And for me, this phase has been going on over 2 years. That Spirit told me that I was going to be creating a stillness in my life, and that things were coming. They would be really big things, and that my only job was to not go to fear. And I remind myself often that is my only job. Everything that's happening in the world right now, I have one job, and it's not to go to fear. And some days are easier than others.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because there's, I mean, especially right now, because there's so much of it out there. So much of it. I mean, you just walk into the grocery store and there it is. You know, it's like, I guess that's the downside of being able to feel things.
Well, and learning to be sovereign, you know, so important in my journey. You know, I found that the myths of the wounded empath, they're the things that we believe to be just the plight of the empath. It's just what happens to an empath, because we are those feeling people. And returning to sovereignty and clearing the porous pieces of myself that felt the need to take on others was just everything. Not, don't get me wrong, Leigh, I still don't like going to the supermarket, you know, with everybody in their masks, and it feels really uncomfortable for me. And I prefer Instacart, but it's better. It's better.
Yeah. A good friend of mine taught me about some people call it the drama triangle.
Yeah, the victim triangle,
like
or the drama triangle.
The victim triangle. Yeah. Okay. So the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescuer, like those 3 points.
So juicy.
And that was really helpful. So now, you know, because I at so many times was like the rescuer, like, oh yeah, let me come in and fix it, let me do it, I've been doing this my whole life, not by choice. But yeah, and even right now I was doing it recently, and it's like, whoa, let me remove myself out of that drama triangle. That's crazy. But yeah, it's like this whole perspective of like, instead of feeling sorry for people, because when you're feeling sorry for them, you're in that triangle, right? So you have to like help them. Just like understanding that like we're all sovereign, we're all making our own choices, like they're on their own journeys, like you don't have to fix them, you don't have to save them, they're good, they're fine. You know, you don't need to do anything for these people, they're fine. Right?
Well, and for me, seeing where my whole life was trying to convince people to love me. And if I can help you, I can show you my value and you'll love me. And all these pieces as the rescuer, and I have played the victim myself, and I have played the perpetrator. I've played all those roles and accepting it.
Everybody's played all of it.
Yeah. And then recognizing that human beings were my drug of choice to hide from my own pain. So for 14 years in my marriage, I tried to save another human because I couldn't face myself. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Oh yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
And a lot of people do it. I did it too. Helping people with their problems, because that's a distraction from having to deal with your own stuff. And
if I save you, will you come save me after I save you? You know, and then when you don't save me after I save you, well, let me give you a piece of my mind. And then some. You know, it's a lot. And to consciously step away from drama in the triggers that come in those beautiful, beautiful gifts, and having the courage to unwrap those gifts in solitude and sit with myself and get really intimate with myself as a result, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if there's people watching that, you know, you never put yourself first, you always put everyone else first, and you're tired and you're worn down and you haven't been taking care of yourself. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Absolutely.
So,
and you know, even as a mother, I've taught my children, you come first. You come first. You are the most important person in your life, and you come first. And how can I love and support you in learning how to put yourself first in a healthy way?
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. And that's awesome that you're doing that for your kids, because that's so vitally important. I tell people all the time, that like, I believe self-love will save the world. That's what
I
will save
agree.
it, is self.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not selfish. That's
No.
bullshit. That is this toxic patriarchal myth that, you know, to be selfless is to be honorable, and oh, he's such a good person, you know, he would give them the shirt off his back. It's like, meanwhile, he's like freezing to death. Like that, you know, that's not great. Because if, okay, this is what I found really helpful in explaining it to people, is you can't help people to the best of your ability if you're not the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about.
I love that, Leigh. And I tell people, you know, all the time, we don't have social problems on this planet. We don't have a sexual violence problem, a gun violence problem. We don't have a hunger problem or a homeless problem on this planet. We have 7.5 billion versions of a pain problem on this planet. And when every single one of us goes inside of ourselves and does the work, we will no longer violate one another. We will no longer hurt one another. We'll feed one another, and we'll house one another, and we'll live in peace and harmony. There's no outside work. Only my internal work. Well, this has been so fun. Oh,
yeah. And I've seen that. I've seen that vision. Like, I've seen it. It is going to happen.
Absolutely. And it is happening. It's happening now. And there are enough people shifting the consciousness on this planet that my children are going to see it in their lifetime.
Yeah, this has just been so great, Chris. So if people are resonating with what you're talking about and they're interested in working with you, well, first, why don't you share like what would be your ideal, I don't know what to call it, your ideal client? Like, who would be the type of person best suited to work with you?
Ooh, I love that. I call them anything people. These are the people that will actually, under all circumstances, do whatever it takes, anything, to live their best life. You know, I shared just a little bit, and you have spent time with me, and you said, Chris can be so triggering. Chris gave you the watered down light version today. Chris is so triggering. But for people who want to meet themselves, every piece and part of themselves, and make slow, sweet love to all the hidden pieces that have been alone in the dark for their entire life and are actually running their life unbeknownst to them, I am the person for them. And so I do all different kinds of things. We have retreats. I do one-on-one Zoom consultations. I do face-to-face consultations. With earth medicines, without earth medicines. Inner child work is my expertise. I'm actually an inner child intuitive. So I can actually have a conversation with those parts of people that they don't see themselves. And that uber triggering Facebook page that you referred to is probably the best place to find me. I'm christiedelvesco Cruz on Facebook. Almost all of my content is public. And Temple in the Sun, both on Instagram and Facebook, would be a great place to find me. Or you can find much of my writing between Elephant Journal, The Urban Howl, and Rebel Society. And I write under Christie Del Vesco, and that's Christiedel, V as in Victor, ESCO @gmail.com anytime.
Wow, she just gave you everything. Yeah, and I will post all those links in the description of the video so people can just easily click there and get to you like that. Oh my gosh, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on and sharing your energy. It's always a pleasure, and I really hope to see you again soon.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm heading down to Florida. I'm not sure how far I'm going to be going, but we'll see.
Come to Temple in the Sun, Leigh. You know I love to have you.
I would love to see you again.
Yes, all right. Thank you for inviting me today. You're amazing, and I love you.
You're amazing too, and I love you too. And I hope that all the viewers